it was a trying time, but knowing that God has written our story, he knows how this all ends, and trying to keep the faith. But there were definitely days where it was kind of like, are you kidding me?
How do you find joy in life's difficult moments? Life is full of challenges, both big and small. Come explore some sticky moments with the women of Reed Memorial and be inspired to find, keep, and share joy in life's journey. On behalf of Reed Memorial, join me, Joy Maple, for our podcast study and helpful resource page to encourage you to find joy in life's sticky moments. Welcome to Finding Joy in Life's Sticky Moments. Today we have a special guest with us. Her name is Kate Daggat, and she is a member of Reed Memorial, but she's recently relocated. But she came back to join us today for this special podcast. Hey, Kate, how are you this morning?
I'm doing amazing. It's so exciting to be kind of home-ish, I guess, so to speak. Because, it's been a few months since we've been able to spend time with you. I'm looking forward to having more conversations.
Well, tell our guest a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. So my name is Kate Daggat. I am married to my wonderful husband, Bill Daggat. He is a PGA professional. And then we have two children, Christian, who is at Georgia Southern University, and our beautiful daughter, Charlotte, who is a 13-year-old.
Well, tell us where you're from and how you got to the Augusta area.
Well, as many people in the Augusta area like to point out, you're not from around here. So I tend to slide back into my northern ways and say, oh, you betcha. Our family is actually originally from Traverse City, Michigan, and we were blessed to be guided down to the Augusta area in 2015. Obviously, with my husband being a PGA professional, he came to the Mecca that was Augusta.
Oh, yeah, of course. The Augusta National and the weather. I mean, who wants to play golf in the cold? I'm sorry.
I got to tell you, when we moved from Michigan, we definitely left the snowblower up at the house and just waved goodbye to never see it again.
So you've been in Augusta and everything's going great. And what led you to change locations?
Well, I got to tell you, everything was going great. My husband had an amazing job, and unfortunately, his role was just removed from where he had been working. And so he found kind of temporary work. And that was in the January, February of 2020. And guess what happened in 2020?
Could it have been a pandemic?
The good news is I had job security here in Augusta working in healthcare. Unfortunately, we had some transition of leadership, and so things started kind of going to a place where we were a little nervous. Bill was able to find some work during the pandemic. He did take that time to focus on his continuing education. So while he was working at a place that was not where he needed to be, it did give him an opportunity to get his master's degree. So while I was working in healthcare and my husband was working full time and getting his degree, and we had a middle schooler at home, we were just kind of in survival mode along with the rest of the world. It was getting a little hairy, and it was just kind of like, well, maybe this isn't what we're meant to be doing at this moment in time. And so during that time, he was interviewing all over the country, and I mean all over the country. Virtual did make that easier because we had Zoom opportunities to interview and all of the different ways that you're doing it virtually. But he was interviewing in California and Washington and up in the DC area where he's originally from and all over the Southeast, and we were a little nervous there for a bit.
Well, were they even hiring during a pandemic? I mean, who plays golf during a pandemic? I mean, we couldn't do much.
I will say golf was the one thing that people could do because it's an outdoor sport. But what we found was a lot of people that didn't want to, bring germs from other places. Most everybody was hiring somebody that lived close by. So typically jobs that he would be up for where we might relocate to Connecticut or Pennsylvania, most of those jobs were being filled by people that already lived in that area.
This journey went on for how long? Most of the pandemic, or?
It was almost the entire time that we started looking truly from before the pandemic really hit the United States. It had already been prevalent in other countries. But he started interviewing January, February of 2020, and it was not until he actually had a job that he started the interview process for August of 2020. And it was in a long line of many positions. So every time he would be getting ready, whether it was kind of the top 5, top 3, top 2 candidates, before he would get on his Zoom meetings, we would usually stop and pray beforehand. And of course, we were praying throughout the entire process that God bring us to the place where both of us could do what it is that he had planned for us. It was kind of, the focus was on where can Bill find where he is meant to be and where he can grow and where he can do the most good. But of course, we were also praying for a good transition for our teenage daughter, and also an opportunity where I would be able to find work as well.
So this journey kind of sounds like, oh gosh, it was going on for a long time. And were you feeling like a little discouraged? Were you like, okay, come on, God, let's go? Or were you just like, nope, I'm going to stay the course. We've got this. I mean, how was that balance?
I think it was a little bit of both. I had to be strong for my husband and my daughter, mostly because at that point in time, I was the breadwinner. In our family at that moment, it was my insurance through my work. It was me being able to have a guaranteed 40 hours and making sure that we could do the things that we needed to do while he was not only interviewing all over the country, but again, he was a full-time master's student online.
Talk about stress level. It's just like way up there. I mean, woo.
Absolutely. But trying to just stay strong for him, and of course not letting our teenage daughter know that we were nervous. It was a trying time, but knowing that God has written our story, he knows how this all ends, and trying to keep the faith. But there were definitely days where it was kind of like, are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm. So you had some dark moments, obviously, and then you kind of, all right, see some light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He was a finalist for a number of positions. And of course, when he would come home and it was given to somebody that lived close by, who might not have had the same level of education or not have had the same number of years, it was hard to say, the pandemic is really kind of guiding who can do which jobs at this point in the game, because people don't want to move. Movers don't want to move us. They don't want to touch our belongings and be in our home as well. So it was terrifying until we got what we thought was the absolute dream job.
So where was this dream job?
We packed up. Again, my husband is from the north. I'm from the north, and we headed south. When we first moved to Augusta, I said, all right, this is as southern as I can get. And I love Augusta. I love the southern charm. I love the southern hospitality. I absolutely have been immersed in it. And when we went further south, it was a whole new world that I had never experienced before.
So you thought maybe that it was going to be a little bit more like Augusta, or maybe Augusta, superfied, kind of thing?
I had my hopes and dreams, and I also had some wonderful, fabulous people that I've met along the way that were from the area that we were moving to, who said, so it's a little different. Mm-hmm. And quite honestly, I was terrified. I actually had the most reservation, but again, I was all about, we're going to be strong. We're going to do this. We're going to make this happen for our daughter. We're going to make this transition happen for our family. And this is, God's plan. This is where we're being led. And so if this is where he wants me to be, this is where I am going to ensure my family's success. And I think most mothers garner like the level of success with, is my child happy? Is my husband happy? Are we doing what we need to do? So I had reservations, but I am a deep end of the pool, jump in with both feet and come what may kind of person. So we definitely jumped in with both feet.
So tell us a little bit about how that transition went. I mean, because you're finishing up, I guess, the heart of the pandemic. So the housing market, you had to sell a house, you had to get your daughter out of school, you had to get down to South Georgia where, am I understanding right, the bill went ahead of you? And so you had to do some of this alone and while he started this new opportunity.
That's exactly what happened. I was still working here in my job in healthcare. Charlotte was in 7th grade, and so we felt that it would be the best transition for her to move at the end of her school year. We were so close to the end that we just knew it would be easier for her. So my husband was living in temporary housing, which ended up being a motel in the community, while I worked full-time and had her in middle school and packed the house and the dog and the cats and
had the house on the market. So there's that level of cleanliness, the orderly, and they can call you at a moment's notice and say, we've got somebody who wants to come look, get out. And you're like,
I will say the housing part was probably the easiest because the market has been so crazy in the community. We did all of that prep work. We had the house spot cleaned and professional photos. And about 3 days before we were going to put it on market, we had a full ask offer and were able to sell it, which almost was working to our disadvantage because I still needed to have my child finish school. I still needed to put in my 2 weeks. I still needed to do all of these things. But we, I'm a huge advocate and fan of God winks. And I was like, okay, this is going to be good. This is going to be a great transition.
Almost like, okay, it sort of gave you that maybe endorsement, like, okay, if it's happening this easily, it must be something that God wants us to do, and kind of giving you that assurance that this was the right step.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
You packed up, you sold the house, you got your daughter out of school, and you headed south.
We did. We found a house kind of through friends, which was interesting. We had an amazing couple that were building in the same neighborhood as to where my husband's new golf course was. They were lovely people, but they were in the process of building their new house. And so we moved into a motel for what I thought was 2 weeks with, again, teenage girl, dog, 2 cats, my husband working full time. But anybody can do anything for 2 weeks because there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
True. 2 weeks is a definitive amount of time. Now, were you in and out in 2 weeks?
So the housing market.
There's more to that story, I think.
There is. So 2 weeks turned into 72 days.
Wow. Because you have to eat out that whole time, right?
Yes. And I am a planner and a prepper, and I love to cook. I love to bake. I love to be in my kitchen. I love to host parties. I love to have people over. And
that was not happening in the hotel. Is that what you're telling me?
That was not. We had a lot of good time at the pool, but the chlorine was definitely not more fun than my own bedroom, right?
Sure. So this 72 days, what happens? And are you job hunting yourself at this point? And how's the new opportunity for your husband going?
Well, so to backtrack a bit, before we came down and moved in, my daughter and I were actually driving down every weekend that Bill started. So he started at the beginning of March, and we didn't move until June 1st. So we were coming down every other weekend or so that I could interview and I could start attending churches and kind of church hunting and finding areas of the community that we could be involved in. I fell into an amazing position with some phenomenal people who met us with absolute love the moment we rolled into town. And they were incredibly generous to let me start working in about July so that would give me time with our daughter, who, again, we were living in a motel. And so we were able to really focus on her for that first month. And then I start work that second month. And then school started that third month. Again, we were still in the motel.
Lots of transition, though. I mean, even though you had that time with your daughter and you had that time to kind of get acclimated to the area, a month's sounds like a long time, but that goes by in a blink. So how did all that go? Was that smooth sailing? Did you find a house and a job, and was it all great?
Everything started kind of slowly trickling in. It felt like, we would make a decision and we would say, okay, here's what we're doing next. And we kept hitting kind of barricades. It felt like the doors were opening and then we'd go to open those doors and they were locked. And so it was just small, disheartening, frustrating things that just kept kind of piling up. And we tried to keep the brave face. One wonderful thing that happened was over the summer trying to find churches. We went to a couple, and the denomination that we are, I was trying to find down there. And unfortunately, they did not have a youth group program, which is very important to our family.
Sure.
But through meeting some wonderful people in the community, we were able to find a church of another denomination. And I called them on a Tuesday and said, hey, we're new in town. I heard you had an amazing youth group. I've got a middle schooler. Is there anything she can do? And Emily Reeves was amazing and said, oh, yeah, why don't you swing by the church this afternoon? We're heading out on a middle school trip on Thursday. We'd love to have her.
Wow. Okay. So that's like, okay, that must be a God wink. But then, I mean, these roadblocks that you're talking about, were you getting discouraged at all? Like, okay, I thought this was kind of God's plan for us because everything seemed smooth at first. And then all of a sudden, it's just like everything is so laborious.
It was. We felt like we were ticking all of the boxes. We were living in a gated community where my husband's golf course was, with golf carts all around us and neighbors, but it just wasn't feeling like home.
It wasn't a fit.
It wasn't a fit. And
how did you feel during those times? Were you just
lonely?
Lonely.
Incredibly lonely. It was really hard to try to go to the course and connect with people or go downtown to restaurants. Again, we're still in a pandemic, so it is hard to be social no matter what. But it just felt like we were forcing relationships. It felt like we were forcing ourselves into situations that we shouldn't be forcing ourselves into. Mm-hmm. We're pretty outgoing people, and it just felt like we heard a lot of "you're not from around here's," and that was disheartening. We were trying to get season tickets to the football game, and we were met with, "Well, you're not from around here." We were trying to get our daughter registered for school, and you're not from around here, right? We're not, but we're trying.
Yeah, clue us in a little bit. We need a little help. So, do you think that all of that was a result of the pandemic, or it was a cultural thing, or, a combination thereof?
Honestly, I think that was God just saying, bide your time. I would love to be able to pinpoint that to personality differences or cultural differences, but quite honestly, the hindsight is God saying, just slow your roll, Daggat. Mm-hmm. Just take it down a notch. The best is yet to come. But in the throes of it, it was so frustrating.
When you're hitting these roadblocks and these little stumbling moments, are you getting discouraged? Are you just like, have we done the wrong thing? What are we doing? And is this, I don't know how after all that to sit here and to be in a new environment that you don't feel like that.
Every single day we felt just, I don't want to say beaten down because that just seems so drastic. We didn't feel beaten down as much as just disheartened. It was just frustrating. And again, we were trying so hard. We were pushing and pushing and pushing in a community that we just shouldn't be pushing in.
Kind of like if you were in the right spot, you wouldn't have to push so hard. It's kind of what I'm hearing you say.
Absolutely.
So things aren't going as smoothly as you'd hoped. How's Bill's job going? Is he enjoying it? Is it filling his cup? Are you just like, yes, everything else is a struggle, but he's loving this?
Yeah, I don't feel that was the vibe that I was getting. It just wasn't. We had a day where we were pushing and pushing and pushing. We were blessed to have our son come home and see our brand new house that we had been in for 2 weeks. We didn't even have the furniture yet that we had ordered to put up. So we were still on air mattresses. We were still living in camping chairs. Our furniture wasn't quite done yet.
Still a little stressful is what she's trying to say.
We were making the best of it. We were having fun adventures of camping in our beautiful brand new house. But so we had the cable guy setting up the cable. Our son was visiting for the first time. Bill was at work. We actually had a professional photographer that was driving to our house to take the photos of the "We've moved" cards. And we were excited to print out, our potential Christmas photos and tell everybody about the success that we were having in our new community, when my husband came home and said that he no longer had a job.
And what was your reaction? I mean, were you just stunned, floored? I mean, just the pit going out of your stomach? I mean, I just don't know how I would have responded to that moment.
All of the above. We were stunned. We were gutted. We were devastated. We were terrified. We were, well, what are we going to do now? We just bought this house. Bill truly had just recovered from COVID.
You didn't even have your furniture yet. Is that correct?
My husband had COVID on an air mattress in an empty house.
Oh, wow.
So he had just gone back to start working again after he had been in and out of the hospital. Like I said, we had all these things that were happening. So first and foremost, I called our professional photographer and said, please don't come and take our "We've moved" pictures in our new home, because this
may not be my home.
Exactly.
Wow.
So that was on a Friday, and we were in scramble mode. It was hugs and tears and fear for about 5 to 10 minutes. And then it was instantly get back to work. So quite literally, Bill and I separated into 2 separate rooms. Again, we had no furniture. So I'm in a camping chair in the guest room. He's in a camping chair in the master bedroom. And we're texting and calling anyone that we could think of to help us figure out what that next step was going to be. My work completely embraced us and had us come in. So that happened on a Friday. And by Monday, we were in my office where I was working with, I was working for a financial firm. And so the head of the firm sat us down and kind of talked us through a whole variety of things. But we were met with love. Oh, I'm going to tear up a little bit. Mm-hmm. We were met with love and grace from my work. Oh, my goodness.
Well, it sounds like God gave you a little angel in your boss.
Absolutely. He was a true godsend. Holy cats, I did not think that talking about my beloved would.
It happens to the best of us.
It does. But we were able to talk through kind of the financial side of what that looked like. We were able to review, a severance package and have a professional read through it with us, which if I didn't have that job, we wouldn't have had that advocate in the community to really say, not only are we praying for you, but we're here for you. So that was beautiful. So that was then the Monday after he was let go.
So it's interesting because all this time you have felt like an outsider, or that you're pushing your way into something and things aren't going well. And then your husband gets let go from his position that he thought was going to be his dream job.
Right.
But then there's this really loving, open, welcoming moment with this boss. And it shows you that you're not alone, that God's giving you this angel and that you've got somebody in your corner. And so he kind of coaches you a little bit, and it's a big stressor. So what happens next?
So when we met with him, we kind of went back into continuing to text and call everybody we could call. Bill was very blessed with some phenomenal mentors in the PGA, some career counselors who were able to just kind of work with him and go through the experiences that he was having on his work side, while I was frantically covering, trying to find different online applications for various jobs. And we found one that was actually not listed with the PGA for a resort up in Rome, Georgia. I had never heard of Rome, Georgia, and had no idea even where it would have been on the map of Georgia. So that was a job that he found, I think, Monday or Tuesday. With the support of his career counselors, he was able to get an application over to them, and we got a call almost immediately asking for him to come up on Thursday of that same week. And they also said to bring me with him, and he was going to interview Thursday and Friday at Barnsley Resort in Rome, Georgia.
This thing that happened less than a week prior seems like, okay, we're kind of getting into this mode where, all right, there might be a change or a solution in sight. So were you feeling a little still panicked, or were you getting a little more peace in the situation and feeling a little like maybe there's a silver lining here?
We immediately continued to put his resume out everywhere we could think to put it out. Now, the drive from Valdosta to Rome was approximately 5 hours, but it's all on 75. So it's an easy drive. So Thursday, I'd say mid-afternoon, while we were driving up, we were just talking about what is God's plan? What is it that we're supposed to be doing? Clearly, what we thought he was supposed to be doing was not what God had intended for us. And so it was a lot of contemplative conversation, but it was also a lot of quiet time in prayer where we would just hold hands and listen to music and just pray quietly to ourselves and sometimes out loud to one another, and just ask for, is this the right thing? Ask for, what is it that we're supposed to say to these lovely people at this nice resort in Rome? And so that conversation in the car that was based solely around prayer led us to a sense of odd peace. We had been in complete frantic.
I was just going to say, you've been in frantic mode for months. I mean, from before you left Augusta, and then to have your family separated for a while. Then you get together and you're in this town and things aren't going as easy as they should. And then this bombshell hits, and to sit here and feel peace. Wow. Okay.
It was. And of course, we had just been burned. And so we were questioning the peace. We got to the property, and one thing that brings me peace and centering in my world is watching Hallmark movies.
All right. You heard it here. Watch a Hallmark movie for peace.
And that has been a family joke for years, of when it was a hard day at work that I would just kind of zone out, whether it was while cooking dinner or patching holes in my children's socks or shoes or whatever it was that I was fixing. But just the zen of Hallmark. And we get to this property up in Rome, Georgia, and we get out of the car, and it truly has that sense of peace and sweetness and just calm.
Does it feel like a Hallmark movie up there?
It feels and looks just like a Hallmark movie.
You were like, I am home.
I'm pretty sure that's exactly what I said when I closed the door and looked at my husband and was like, so I don't know if this is going to work out for you, but this works for me.
Exactly. A little bright spot in this dark journey. Okay, so how did things go when you got up there?
It was fascinating because it was not a traditional interview process for him. It was very much that we were both kind of being interviewed at the same time. And after the fact, speaking with the director of HR, it was very intentional on their end that they're not looking for a singular person to fill a void that they had, but they're looking for somebody who wants to truly embrace what the resort is, which is a beautiful retreat of relaxation and kind of stepping away from the city life and the hustle and bustle, and being a part of a beautiful opportunity to just be in nature and doing things that people love to do there on property. And you could feel the calmness exude from everybody that we spoke with on property. Thursday evening turned into Friday morning, where Bill had his formal interview with everybody at the resort, and he was offered the position.
Wow, that's exciting. So he's offered this position, and what are your thoughts? I mean, other than yes, but I mean, really, there's still a host of other questions still pending.
We had, so 2 questions went through my head. A, how quickly can we all move up here? And B, what are we going to do with the house that we have owned for the last 3 weeks?
I've never heard of anybody doing that quick of a turnaround. So how did all that go? So you've pushed to get to South Georgia. And are you thinking, oh my goodness, I got to push again to get to Rome?
I absolutely thought, holy cats, how am I going to do this again? I was terrified. They actually had Bill start, I think, the following week. So he had 1 week to find the things that he needed, and then he moved again.
Wow.
And I was back in an empty house with my teenager and dog and 2 cats.
And listing a house for sale again.
Yes. Well,
within 30 days.
Exactly. So the good news is our furniture was delivered, but I never actually got to use my brand new bedroom dressers. We didn't get to
unpack them. Oh my goodness.
So poor Charlotte, she was on a mattress on the ground. We never got to put her new bed together and said, all right, buddy.
Here we go.
We've done this once. We're going to pack it up again.
So what was the difference between this move and the move to South Georgia?
The financial stability that we were able to have because we were able to hire professionals. We could hire movers. We could hire a realtor immediately. We put the house on the market, I think, maybe 10 days after Bill moved up to Rome. And within 3 days, we had a full ask offer that was significantly higher than what we had purchased the home for 6 weeks prior.
So there was no push on that front. What about your employment? And what about school for your daughter?
My employment was amazing. Again, they were absolute angels when we needed to have some angels in our world. And they were incredibly generous with a severance, knowing that I needed to focus on my child and moving her up. So unfortunately, I couldn't stay with them, and I would work for them again in a heartbeat. But they were incredibly generous with saying, all right, here's your pay through the rest of the next month. Take care of your family.
Wow.
It was, again, I can't believe that's the part that I'm tearing up about.
That is a very sweet part. So it doesn't sound as challenging as the first move.
It was not at all. We, again, we're doing kind of the every weekend, the 5-hour drive one way to Rome.
Now that's a little much, but woo.
Well, I will say, again, another little God wink is we were able to make that halfway drive with a stop at Buc-ee's.
Now, tell me a little bit about Buc-ee's. A little side note here on this podcast. Tell me about Buc-ee's.
So for those who have not had the blessed experience
of a Buc-ee's.
It's a ginormous gas station that is a really nice gas station with phenomenal food and snacks and trinkets and clothing and home goods. And if anybody's going to carry it, Buc-ee's will carry it. And so I think that Buc-ee's basically carried us through the drive back and forth, because it would be for 24 hours so that I could go to an interview, or 24 hours so that we could meet with potential teachers, or it was a short turnaround trip, but you got to stop for the brisket at Buc-ee's.
Okay. All right. Well, you heard it here. Go to Buc-ee's next time you're en route to Rome, Georgia. So you found employment. Was that a challenge up there?
It was not.
Again, no more pushing. You're done pushing. What is that telling you?
It was crazy. I had several lovely interviews at places that were not the right fit. And I think because we had been so burned that I was willing to kind of advocate for some great opportunities with amazing companies, but it wasn't the right fit either way, whether it was the hours that they were looking for, or for me, the number of hours that I had the opportunity to work. And so we were visiting Bill while he was staying on property. again, he was no longer living in a motel. He was living in a beautiful opportunity at the resort for a brief period of time. And I just kind of struck up a conversation with the director of HR. And so we got to just talk, and she said, hey, why don't you send me your resume? And so I did, and we set up an interview for a position quickly on property, and now I also work for Barnsley Resort.
So the two of you work on property together. That's pretty fun.
We do. We work in completely different departments, doing completely different things. But it is nice to every once in a while be able to have lunch with my husband.
That is neat. Now, how did the transition go for your daughter?
So the times that we were trying to beg for information at the school that she had previously been in, Bill had called ahead and said, hey, we're going to have a student transitioning in. And not only did he get the person that was going to do the registration, but she said, here's the deal. I know transitions are incredibly hard. Here's my work email, but here's also my cell phone number. If she's having any problems or questions that arise after hours and I don't have my email on me, go ahead and give me a phone call or shoot me a text message, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you have.
Wow, that's great.
It was amazing. It was a complete 180 from what we had experienced previously of begging for information. We walked into what would have been her first day of school and met a number of people right there at the office. And what they did was say, hey, you know what? Transitioning into a school is hard, so we're going to go ahead and find a student that can walk you from class to class. We're going to give you a map of the school. We're going to give you the names of all of your teachers ahead of time so that you can send them an email. We'll go ahead and let them know that you're coming. And just kind of the warmth and the welcoming that we received in Rome was a 180 from what we had experienced initially.
Wow. So it sounds like everything was like the doors were all opening and you weren't having to push, and it was just meant to be that you would be in Rome.
Absolutely. It was, and again, not to say anything disparaging about where we were, it just wasn't the right fit for either party. And it was like, we were nervous. We were worried that we were going to get burned again, but the doors just flew open.
So it's so interesting because in listening to your story, they say the top, 5 stressors. One is a job change. Mm-hmm. Okay. You two have done that twice. A move. You two have done that twice. And for your poor daughter, changing schools, she's done that twice. I mean, come on. Did y'all want the T-shirt or what?
Yeah, the T-shirt didn't fit.
You were like, no.
It wasn't the right fit.
So how or what did you find most helpful? Because obviously this was a hugely sticky moment in time. What did you find helpful for you during this time and for your family, for your daughter, for your husband? What were things that anchored you other than those quiet moments of prayer that you mentioned?
One thing that is incredibly important to our family and has always been incredibly important to our family is music. And whether it's been connecting with the musicians at our church, my husband has been a musician at one of our churches back in Michigan. Having been youth leaders, we were all about the music that the kids were singing and playing. But music in general is incredibly important in our lives. And because I was on the road a lot during this time of driving from Augusta to Valdosta and back, in 48 hours, and then driving from Valdosta to Rome and back again in under 48 hours, I was in the car a lot, sometimes with my daughter, sometimes by myself. And I credit my time with the music. And I do feel that it wasn't spiritual music all the time. Mostly Broadway hits.
There you go. Okay.
I am a music theater nerd. So it was times where I would just kind of talk to God, and I felt spoken to back through the music choices that were coming on the radio. I would say, is this really something that I'm supposed to do? And we'd get a little Oklahoma 80 Annie, just a girl that can't say no. All right, well, I'm not going to say no either. All right.
Okay.
But a lot of the music of just kind of singing along and releasing I am definitely Mariah Carey in my car and Oscar the Grouch singability outside of my car.
There you go. I hear you. So the music was definitely a big thing. Anything else that you found helpful or kind of therapeutic?
I think really being able to connect to some of my Bible study tribe. I had been involved in an amazing Bible study here at Reed Memorial, the Young Women of Faith, and being able to text my friends or call them. There's a group of us that have a small kind of a group one to the side, and being able to just
say, hey, it's crazy out here in this world.
It is crazy out here. And all of us have things that are going on in our worlds. You know, everybody's got a story that they're either in the midst of or on the edge of. And I think being able to have that circle of friends through my Bible study to just be able to say, hey, can we just I just want to hear about what your kids are doing today, because I'm up to my eyeballs in stress over here. And if I can find out what your 4-year-old's doing or whatever is going on, just connecting with them and having the sense of, I was so incredibly lonely in Valdosta, and still feeling that connection, even though it was virtually, with my women of faith.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what did you learn about yourself during this sticky situation?
So many things.
Uh-oh. Is that good or?
Well, I learned that I'm a bit much for some.
Really?
I am. I know that's going to shock you.
Kate is larger than life, always.
I am aware. I've been told for a long time that I'm a bit much, but even though I can be a bit much, I do my best to be authentically me and to be true to who I am and true to what my family needs and true to how we want to have relationships with people. And that can be incredibly overwhelming for those who want to just have surface relationships. I'm not a surface relationship kind of person. And I love to get to know the meat and potatoes of who people are, because I feel that we are called to love one another in Christ. And I do feel very strongly that we are all constantly going through things. And it is our job as Christians to sit with one another in the darkness and to celebrate the joy and the light when we are in those different moments. And that is not how everybody feels. And so it's sad to feel that rejection or kind of like that abandonment of, well, this is who I am and why don't you love me? But it's also not my job to make other people love me. And it's, having raised children and currently raising a teenager, my round shape is not meant for that square hole.
True.
And so trying to find the relationships, trying to find the work relationships, trying to find the community relationships. If my square peg is not fitting into your round hole or vice versa, then that's okay, because that's not what God has intended for me to be. And that's not where God has intended for those people to embrace me. And that's okay.
That's right. Well, it also is so great because it shows that to your daughter that, you know what, not everybody that we come into contact with is going to welcome and embrace you. But if you are kind and loving and respectful, that's all that matters. And then you will find your people. You will find your tribe.
Absolutely. I love to embrace the, finding joy in life's sticky moments. And one thing that I say to my children, to my husband, to my friends and people that I love is, instead of okay, I love you, goodbye, it's usually choose kindness, be a leader, and make smart choices. So if I can follow the choosing kindness or finding joy, always be a leader. Don't be a follower, be a leader, and making smart choices. We might not like our smart choices, but the smart choices are better than the dumb choices.
That is absolutely true. What is one positive thing that has come from this journey that you hope continues?
Oh, so many positive things have come out of this. One, I think, that would really kind of resonate is to be authentically yourself, regardless of how you are received. I think being true to how I feel I am supposed to carry myself as a Christian woman, as a woman of faith in this community, is not going to necessarily be embraced by those around us. And if I'm going to be too much, I'm going to be too much love. I'm going to be too much happiness. I'm going to be too much joy, because those are the things that I choose. I could choose to sit at home and be lonely. I could choose to feel like I'm not included. I could choose to have a pity party. But I have chosen, as a distinction, to be too much, to be too loving, to be too snuggly, to be too cuddly.
So that leads me to my final question. Do you believe that joy is a choice?
It's always a choice. It's always an option. And that is exactly why I tell my children to choose kindness. It is always an option. I'll say it to my coworkers who are struggling with guests or clients or one another. I'll say it to friends who are over for dinner and gossiping about somebody. So yeah, we could choose kindness instead. And I'm not going to say that I'm an angel and always am able to choose kindness or always able to choose joy. But when I'm sitting in the darkness, I know that I'm not sitting in the darkness alone. Mm-hmm. And when I'm able to get out of the darkness, I'm able to choose joy and find joy.
It kind of as a final thought, what is one piece of advice other than choosing kindness that you would give somebody going through a very similar situation that like you've just been through?
If the doors are closed, sometimes they're closed for a reason. Sometimes they need a little nudge. And sometimes we're not going to like what's on the other side of the door. And that's okay.
Well, you have certainly had a very interesting story full of twists and turns, and you've handled it with such joy and grace. It has been so fun to have you here today to share a little bit of your sticky moment and how you found joy in that journey. And boy, you didn't do it once, girl. You did it twice. I love it. I love it. If you don't get it right the first time, try again, right? I really think that's your motto, Kate. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, and we will look forward to hearing more from you and Barnsley Resort in the future.
We're so honored to be able to be here with you. Thank you so much for including me.
If you want to enrich your prayer life in a creative and meaningful way, we would like to invite you to participate in prayer walks at the Locks with our associate pastor, Reverend Nadine Ellsworth Moran, every Wednesday at 8:30 a.m. at the Savannah Rapids Pavilion. Enjoy this adventure with God. Join us every second and fourth Wednesday of the month on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and our website, readchurchaugusta.org.